So all my friends keep asking me, Jason, how long can you go? How long can you play with your electric dinghy? Well, I'm happy to say I can go at least half an hour. Okay, but seriously, we can go for a couple hours if we just keep it slow. And when we go like full throttle, then yeah, it's only about a half an hour. But truth be told, we've just kind of been winging it because we've just been going here and there, and we keep an eye on the battery, and when it drops down to 20–30%, I stick it on the charger. So today we have one goal, that's to run this dinghy down all the way. So we're gonna go cruise this coastline, we're gonna go find maybe a good snorkeling spot, and just do what cruisers do, explore, have a good time.
It's all for you.
99% battery.
Okay, so I've got the BNG app, and I'm going to record our track so that we can see how fast we're going and how far we go today. But I'm just gonna go ahead and hit record, and then I won't stop it until we get back. Before we go too far, we wanted to kind of give you a quick tour of our little boat here, because there are a lot of different things going on. And starting with the tender itself, this is an OC tender built in New Zealand. We got to visit the factory and meet the owners and kind of learn the philosophy behind the boat while we were there. And we were doing this whole like rigid versus inflatable debate and trying to kind of figure out what we wanted to do for curiosity. And we landed on rigid really just for longevity. It just, as long as you take care of it, it's built out of the same materials as your big boat, meaning it will last just as long, a lifetime or further. So it will outlive us as long as it's taken care of, and I like that. And then, as Russ will tell you, it is not a deflatable. We went with the full carbon build just because we wanted to shave off that little bit of extra weight because we were going electric, and less resistance through the water, less weight, hopefully should increase our range. At least that's what we keep telling ourselves.
And the flat bottom.
Oh yes, the way that he builds them is not your typical kind of V shape at the bottom. It is more like a surfboard. So it's so slippery, which means you get up on a plane super fast. And in our case, if you've got a jet tender, it means it's so much fun. It's so easy. You can turn on a dime. It becomes as much of a toy as it does a tender. You can do 360s while getting your groceries.
So that's the boat, and the motor is ZeroJet, and like the name says, it is a jet. So super shallow draft, which is really nice. And we did this whole test back in New Zealand before we chose this, where we tested all the different electric motors that we could get our hands on. And this one won by far because it was the only one that could go the distance and go the speed that we wanted. So we've been really happy with the system. The batteries are separated, which is kind of cool, and they're midship under the gunnels. So they balance really well, and that also helps us get on a plane. The motor's all internally cooled. We haven't really had any issues with anything getting sucked up in the jet, and we've been going through lots of debris, so that's kind of a plus. I was worried about that in the beginning, but it's also easily accessible. Like if a plastic bag or something gets stuck under there, you just reach your hand under and you pull out the bag. And I guess at that, there's no prop. Because it's a jet, there's nothing sticking down in the water, so we don't have to worry about hitting each other.
Yeah.
Hitting reef. And the best thing about electric, I don't know why I just thought about this, is when you let go of the throttle, it stops.
That's why you're not wearing the safety pole.
Yeah, technically I could wear this, but also as soon as I stop, the boat stops, so.
If your hand's not on the throttle, the boat's not going. We're starting with accessories, so tell me about your wheels.
We did get these beach wheels, which I have to be honest, they do work if the sand is really packed, but they definitely work on rocky beaches or hard beaches. On soft sand beaches, not so much, no. Especially with the weight of an electric tender and the batteries. But one cool thing that we didn't expect, when you're paddling or rowing, when you're rowing this boat, all you do is lift up on one of these wheels and you pop it down in the water, and now you've got a rudder, because the jet doesn't have a rudder, so you just start like spinning around a little bit, just pop down a wheel and you can paddle a lot more easily and more straight.
Speaking of shallow draft.
Yeah, geez, it's real shallow underneath me.
We're going over to say hello.
Yeah, I can't get too close. It's shallow. Nikki. Jason. See you.
We're slowly drifting closer and closer to the reef, and then there was a guy over there and he's like, oh, come closer so I can take a picture of you. It's beautiful. So he either liked us or he liked our boat. I don't know which one. But I'm gonna say he liked us, right?
Yeah, he's like, come closer. I'm like, oh, it's pretty shallow. So I'm gonna stick to the back half here, Nikki's gonna do the front half. I'm gonna tell you what's in these little things we made. This does not come with the boat. I think it is a really great idea because it shades the batteries and it kind of keeps them out of sight, which I think is better, but we didn't execute this in the best way.
It's also not properly tied up.
Anyway, it's all gonna change, so don't judge that, please. I'm just gonna go through what's inside here. We've got a couple waters. Hydration's important. We got a bilge sponge. One thing about this tender is it always has a tiny bit of water in it, especially when you jump in and out. It doesn't have a dual floor like our old Highfield had, like this dual floor, so the water was always hidden, which is nice. But this one, you just have a little sponge. And then in case we get stuck in a big rainstorm and we're not paying attention, I got a little bilge pump.
Yeah, because we've done that before and filled up the whole tender before.
Real quick. The boat does come with oars. And it does come with floating seats, so you can put the seat down and you can paddle. Here we have snorkel gear because we're going on a snorkel.
Yeah, but just focus on the stuff that stays in the boat.
Yeah. We have fenders. These are quite fun fenders. These are mermaids.
Yeah.
Who doesn't want sexy mermaids on their boat? Throw those
You
out.
always need a couple of sexy mermaids to protect your boat.
Yeah, we throw those out and everybody gets a good laugh, and you know the locals are like, oh yeah. It's pretty funny. We got an extra line in case we need a stern tie to anything. We have a tricolor solar powered light. So if we get stuck out here at night, we pop this on. It comes with like a pole from Mantis, I believe. Yeah, from Mantis it comes with a pole, but I just drive and hold it. It's just easy.
Because we haven't actually taken the time to install a pole anywhere. Yeah.
Always Dyneema loops, you never know.
Soft shackles.
Soft shackles, we got a
never have
couple.
too many soft shackles.
Couple of those. And then everything else is up front, you can talk about that.
Really, truly, other than keeping like a dry bag for random stuff. And then I always bring a compact emergency medical kit because you just never know. The biggest thing in there is the tourniquet, in my opinion. And that's because I have a friend out of Florida, Francisco. He is a paramedic and he works on the water. And he said it's incredible how many people end up with an injury where you have cut an artery and they never even make it to shore. So that is all about being able to tend to anything you need to be able to get you back to the big boat or shore or to help or whatever, but the tourniquet is a big one. And especially if you're out spearfishing, any of that kind of stuff, very important to have that. These bags already do come with the OC, so those are quite nice. The bucket here that we have is actually kind of multi-purpose. It works as a seat in the middle. It's nice and sturdy, but it's also a cooler, a dry box at that. We put camera gear in it today, but sometimes we put food and drinks in it. You can take it to the beach, plop it there. It just kind of felt like a good all-around bucket to have in the dinghy. The locker lid was a big one. This used to just be open because this is where your anchor and your line gets stowed. But I was like, we need something to be able to step right there. Russ, build me a lid. And therefore he did. Thank you very much. Those actually come on the OC. You can order those now. And inside here, we've got our anchor, which I'm sure whenever we go snorkel, I'll show you that a little bit closer. We'll just cut to that footage right now. We have a Mantis anchor, fits perfectly down inside this little anchor locker with a certain amount of chain and then rode. I'll put that on the screen, or better yet, I'll just link to a whole tender guide with all of these bits and bobs, all listed out with links to wherever the heck we bought them. If you're interested, you can check them out. And I'll put some more info on my medical kit, 'cause I'm not gonna bother going over that now.
We're also telling you this because the less weight you have in a boat, the better. And we're just showing you that it is set up like a normal tender. Plus we have like 8 pounds of camera gear in there, and then the 2 of us. So the more weight you put in an electric tender, the shorter distance you can usually travel. Oh.
And it can affect your speed
It
too.
can affect your speed and the way you plane and all that.
But same if you have a
Yeah. It works with the gas engine the same way, I guess.
Yeah.
It's more sensitive with an electric because you can only go a certain distance before your battery's gone. You know. And then we do also carry, if we're in a situation where we need a stern anchor or we're gonna leave the boat on the beach, then we'll bring another anchor. I have a secondary Mantis anchor because it packs up really small so we can front and stern anchor so the boat doesn't go crashing into the beach. Because trust me, that's happened too many times. And I used to have this one that would like fold open and then like open up and you could throw that stern anchor, but it never held. So then I ended up just getting 2 Mantis ones because we've literally never had them back, so. Okay, now we're gonna go again.
Okay. Yep, they're fishing all right.
Yeah. Oyster or fish?
Fish. So a lot of times if there's a seawall like this, then you'll see the guys out there kind of trolling the wall, and they're actually getting all the oysters off of the wall. But those guys said that they are indeed fishing. Yeah, there's a lot of reef right here.
Could be a good place to hop in.
Maybe. All right, well, first time for everything.
Yeah, we're gonna run the battery down, and now we're gonna check the grate for the first time.
Yeah, we've literally never had anything get sucked up, but it sounds like there's something under there right now.
I just felt it. It feels a little different. It sounds a little bit different. So we are floating. I'm gonna hop in after we get out of this foamy stuff. If I run it really low, it sounds okay. But as soon as I give it throttle,
okay, well, give us some throttle so we can all hear it.
I don't know. If you don't know what it's supposed to sound like, how do you know what it sounds weird?
Yeah, well,
It sounds like I don't know, like
you can hear it rattling.
Yeah. Okay.
Okay.
All right, I'm gonna jump in.
Well, of course, this all happens right as the wind is starting to pick up and there's a little bit of gray storm clouds building up behind us. Jason said it looked like it's fishing line stuck underneath there, but it's pretty far up in there. So this is a first. We've literally never had to stop for anything, and don't you know, fishing line would be the thing that gets wrapped up in there. It's the same, if it gets wrapped around your prop, it's a problem.
I think I have to beach it and take the grate off.
Oh, really?
Yeah, because it's just wrapped around the shaft. So it doesn't look like it's a problem for going slow.
Well, that was a detour we didn't expect.
Yeah, and unfortunately there's no real beaches. So the only place I know to go is back to the marina where there's a ramp.
Well, poultry right there. And a floating dragon. So interesting thing they do here on this island is they rope off all of the beach areas, whether it's public beach or a resort or whatever the case may be. And they do that, I'm sure, for several different reasons. One is for all the fishing boats. If it's a roped off area for swimming and playing, you never have to worry about a boat coming by and having to keep that in mind. So everybody just gets to swim and play with no concerns of a boat coming by, right? And then the other thing is because there is so much debris because we're up in a big bay, just so much stuff can get caught up here. So, you know, we passed a big gigantic banana tree, there will be logs, there'll be all sorts of stuff that gets kind of sent down from the rivers or just floods off of land whenever it's a big heavy rain, ends up in the water, and this kind of keeps that out of all of the swimming areas. So it kind of serves lots of purposes, but it is interesting. It's frustrating as a cruiser because you can't just rock up to the beach and come and hang out because there's a big barrier, but it's also really nice because it's safe and protected and it's clean. You don't have logs floating around and all that kind of stuff. It's different and I kind of like it. Well, that was a much shorter adventure than we anticipated. We said we wanted it to be a typical cruiser day. This is as typical as it gets. You end up with tools in your hands.
All right, the interesting thing about a jet is we don't have a big outboard sticking out. This davit system is made for like a 310, but we were able to squeeze a 330 size tender on here because we don't have that big outboard. So I'm not worried also about bashing into the paint job or the fiberglass or the carbon fiber, whatever your boat's made out of. I'm not worried about it like rocking back and forth the same. It's just, yeah, so a bigger tender and no big motor to bash things up. Can we get the Allen key, please? Oh, I get to talk about my tools again.
No.
Yeah, these are stainless, so that's really good. And it has this little nipple thing that in theory will hold the head of the bolt. So when I undo it, it won't just go ploop. This will keep it in there.
Well, we're about to test that out because you're working upside down.
Yeah, nothing sketchy about this.
Nope. So did it hold it or did you just hold on to it?
It held it.
Hey.
I'm still really nervous. My butt is so tight.
Now you're getting confident. I stopped recording. What was that statement?
I said maybe I should read the manual.
Ooh.
I can feel it wants to come, but I don't want to force it.
That's what she said.
What? That's what she said. I have this thing in my head. I'm gonna pull on it real hard. It's gonna come out and I'm just gonna flip over.
And something else is going to come out, that you're going to break something, think it cause more problems.
Hey!
Great success.
Nice. That's pretty easy. I mean, a little bit of tugging, but wow, they are catching very tiny fish with this. It's almost like dental floss. Just such tiny monofilament.
Here, you want to give me that?
Huh.
That might have been what was making all the noise.
Yeah. Yeah, I don't feel anything else. It's turning. I don't hear anything. Okay.
All right, well, I was gonna say, well, while Jason's finishing putting that back together, I guess he's done. I was just gonna say that in the manual, and this is why you read the manual. Clearly, neither one of us have fully read the manual, because when we went to look that up, it is just the 4 screws. We were doing it correctly, and that's why it came off. But there is a jet clear function, which is right there on the screen, and had we looked, we would have seen it. It probably would not have helped us out in this situation. But what it does is it's a reverse function. So if there was like a plastic bag stuck up on that grate, you just hit that button and it reverses the flow so that it would blow it off of there, which is very cool, because whether that's a stick or whatever, if you can tell that something is rattling around. But in this case, fishing line, just like as if you have an outboard and it gets wrapped around the prop, in this case, you want to get it off of the shaft as well. And it also, in there, it gives a little tip section in the manual, and it said to carry like a little hook, I guess just because that's easy enough to slide into the grate to be able to clear that fishing line if it were something that you would just be able to easily do in the water, which is a good tip. Well,
Good news and bad news. Good news, that was really easy. The bad news, while we're in here, they decided to close the gate, and it's now 4 o'clock. They leave at 5, so if we went out, we would only have about 30 minutes before you had to turn around and come back, so.
I know, talk about a detour.
So maybe tomorrow morning we'll get up really early and we will finish it. So the question is, do I charge the battery and we do another full speed run and see? Or do I keep the battery as is and see how much further we can go?
That's the whole thing, one battery. So I feel like we have to finish off this battery. We wanted to see how far we could go. Doesn't matter, I've got all the tracking data and I have all of our speeds and stuff. So I feel like we just pick up tomorrow in the morning.
Morning!
Salama.
Well, we put the boat up last night at 57%. Now we're at 56% and we're out of the marina. Let's keep this test going. Real cruiser style.
Okay, so what are we about to do?
We are gonna do a full throttle launch from standing still, and then once we get on a plane, I'm gonna just let go of the throttle and we're gonna see that that motor just stops. Okay?
Okay.
And we're gonna enjoy the karaoke.
If you can hear it, yeah.
Yeah, let me get lined up so I'm not aiming for shore. Okay, you ready?
Ready.
All right, here we go. Hold on. 18 knots, 19 knots, and here we go. Stopped pretty quickly. Definitely, if you were out there, if you fell out, you could swim to this boat pretty quick. It's right there.
Oh, no, there's
Oh, that's a challenge. Why did I say that? I could accept that challenge.
Yeah, to see if you fell overboard, but you'd have to actually go for it. It's all filmed from here.
I'll take my microphone off.
Okay.
Stupid.
Last time
Why?
you make a comment.
Why did I say that?
This is gonna be fun.
Or stupid.
I apologize for the exposure change.
Saying I'm white?
Yep.
Okay, let's see. How am I gonna fall off in a natural way? Okay.
I don't think there's any natural anything about it. Good luck.
Ready?
Yep.
Here we go. It's so hard to jump off!
You can do it! sure do. You're welcome.
That was exciting. Do it again.
Were you afraid that it was gonna hurt?
Yeah, I thought
going
it
off?
was gonna hurt going off at 17 knots.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking. I was like, okay, maybe you don't have to go off at full throttle.
I didn't go full. I was at 17.
Oh, hold on.
I didn't go full. I was at 17.
Okay. That's still pretty good.
Yeah. That was fun. Should we snorkel now?
Yeah, you're wet anyway, right?
Yeah.
Okay, let's go for it.
We're at 38% battery. I'm looking at the microphone. We're at 38% battery.
She is. I think there's a good spot right here. And we're almost to it. It was a little green at first.
Yeah, right when we jumped in, I thought, this is terrible. This is not going to be good, but it turned out okay. The deeper you went, the clearer it got. And I think it's like a classic case of you never can judge a dive spot or a location based on one dive, because we've been to that similar spot many times and we've seen super clear water. We've seen little crocodiles, we've seen like long banded sea crates, we've seen, I mean, clearly we saw today all these beautiful corals, and you know, there are all so many different types of soft corals. I've seen like 8 different types of starfish in there. I only found 3 today. It's mostly pretty healthy. It's really enjoyable.
Yeah.
Enjoyable spot.
I think it was a little green and cloudy today because we've had like 4 solid days of rainstorms. Yesterday and today were our first kind of sunny days. It makes sense, being in a bay, that we're going to have a lot of sediment and other things in the water. But still good, and I felt like the longer we were in the water, the better it got. And I don't know if that was just in my head or if that was actually true. But it was definitely creepy at first because you're diving, but you don't know what you're going into, and then all of a sudden you would just hit a different layer. And you kind of go through that, I don't know if the camera could pick it up, but you go through that little bit of a halocene layer where it's the temperature changes and you get those weird wavy bits in the water. Anyway, it was cool. That out. Do you think that's an Airbnb?
Definitely too shallow to drop that.
Right?
No way that's happening.
Kind of a neat looking little resort. What are those called again?
For like a cargo ship, that would be lifeboat.
Lifeboat.
Boat.
Hello.
Afternoon.
Okay, Captain, where are we sitting?
We have meandered our way slowly down. We are at now 26%, and I'm gonna try to get on a plane, do about 15 knots as long as I can, and then around 10% it will go into like the protection mode or the LIMP mode, or I don't know what you call it, but it's gonna slow us way down so we can get the rest of the distance, no problem. In theory, that's what's gonna happen.
Yeah. And in theory, hopefully we have no paddling involved. No rowing.
Rowing.
No rowing involved. God, so hard to get that down. Punch it.
15%, and now we are limited to 5-6 knots.
It's not bad.
I bet if I scoot forward, it'll get up on a plane. There's a little bit of a wake. 3 knots, that looks a lot more efficient.
Yeah. 3 to 4 is, I'm sure, probably the sweet spot.
Yeah, we'll ask ZeroJet what testing they've done, if there is a sweet spot for distance. Follow up on that later.
Yeah.
Maybe in the post.
Maybe.
I can see the marina, so we're only a little short ways away.
Yeah. Okay, it is data reveal time. Got all of our stats from the day, but we also, last week, decided to do sort of a high-speed
test.
High-speed test, yeah, just to see how far can we go at speed. So we've also got those numbers to share with you as well, kind of in comparison to our average day. And before we dive into that though, I feel like very important, full transparency, ZeroJet did sponsor our motor, but that was only after we asked them to, because based on the testing that we had done, we realized that was the only electric option for us at that time that could do the range and the speed that we wanted. So we approached them, they didn't approach us, and they don't get any say over any of our content, what we say, what we do, nothing else. So we're not going to sugarcoat these numbers. We're not trying to sell you on anything. We're literally just trying to provide real world, real use case scenario information, because we were curious. We didn't actually know how far we could go in a day.
It's pretty embarrassing, actually.
Yeah, every time somebody asks, you're like, I don't know.
Never thought about it.
I'm assuming 10 miles, but I don't know. So, go for it.
Okay, here we go. This is the data.
Ooh, that is very cold.
Ooh, yeah. The data from the high-speed day. And I tried to travel at 15 knots, but holding the throttle the whole time, 15 knots, you know, you kind of go up and down. You have to dodge some banana trees and whatnot. So we were able to motor for 30 minutes, and we were able to motor 6.91 nautical miles. And there was some current because we were going around the island, and then of course we were coming back, so we were fighting a current, we were with a current, there was wind, there was chop, we had like 8 to 10 knots of wind. So there was lots of variables, and we returned to the boat with 18% battery left. So we could have turned that 6.7 nautical miles into probably 7.
Yeah.
At that same speed.
So then our average cruiser day, our speeds were all over the place because we were going fast, and then we would slow down to probably 3, 4, 5 knots when we were just kind of cruising along the coast, checking things out, or, you know.
Having a local go, come closer, come closer.
Exactly. So you're definitely going slow, kind of approaching into that stuff. So it was just variable speeds. We were out for a little over 5 hours in between the playing around, looking at stuff, and then our snorkel session.
5 hours over 2 days.
Yeah, the 5 hours over 2 days. And then our total distance was 10.36 nautical miles with some current. I made about 5 to 10 knots of wind through most of the day. You saw it was like totally glassy at one point,
Choppy.
windy at another. Weather changes by the hour here, as it does
everywhere.
Yeah, exactly.
We limped back in.
So whenever we plugged it in, it had 7%.
So we could have gone a little bit further.
But we were, it just, look, so interestingly, ZeroJet allows you to take it down to 0.
They program in some safety features.
Right, so 0% still isn't actually 0. They are sort of making it stupid-proof-ish, right?
That's the idea.
That's the idea.
But even still, lithium batteries are expensive. You don't want to push it.
Yeah, so 7% just felt like a good safe margin. We were like, do we really need to take it to 0? I'm sure I know it would be fine.
Yeah.
I don't know,
I don't know. We're kind of in the middle of nowhere. I don't want the batteries to go.
Exactly.
anything.
You're just like, really, it's not necessary. Let's just not do that. Yeah.
And then for variables, there's a lot of variables to consider. As with any small boat, petrol or electric, it doesn't really matter. You have the speed, the most efficient speed. So with the ZeroJet, I asked them, what is the most expensive... So I asked them, what is the most efficient speed? And they said, basically, if you're pottering around at very low speeds, for example, you should get 14 nautical miles at 4 knots of speed. And if you hit 3 knots, then you should be able to double it.
Can you imagine 30 miles essentially.
30 miles at 3 knots.
I guess technically a little less than that, but 28 miles, 25 miles.
That is 10 hours of motoring on a little boat. It'd be okay if you were like trawler fishing or something like that.
For 10 hours? That's a long, long day to be out there. Now, I'm not saying that's not a good challenge and we shouldn't maybe test that out and prove that one day, but that's a very long time to go that slow. Don't know if I have the patience for it, but we could give it a try.
So 3-4 knots is the most efficient. The next most efficient spot would be when you get the boat up on a plane, which for us, I get it up on a plane at about 15 knots and then I can back it off depending on how much weight we have in the boat to 12 or 13 knots. And that's really the next most efficient speed. And then like everything in between that 5 to 10 knots, you saw when I was really cranking it, that butt really buries down, and when you're only going 5 to 10 knots, it's just not efficient at all. But that's the same with any type of motor.
It doesn't matter what type of boat either. It always feels better when you're on a plane or you're just going slow.
Yeah, and then obviously weight, the less weight you have, the easier it is to plane, the faster you can go, the more efficient everything is. And then temperatures is an interesting one because electric motors don't like extremes. And maybe I shouldn't say don't like, maybe I should say they prefer not to be in extremes. So our 90 degrees and 90% humidity is not the friendliest environment to be testing, but it's real.
Yeah, I mean the same thing, our cameras are just as sensitive. They don't like, no battery or electronic likes being excessively hot or crazy cold. So if you're cruising in the Arctic, then electric is going to be more challenging. And then during the middle of summer, I guess would that be summer? Anyway, it gets really freaking hot and water temperatures are hot, so everything is just hot on top of hot, which means everything's going to heat up more. We haven't really had too much trouble with like temperature warnings, but I think if you were flat out for that solid half an hour with no break in between, you might make the motor a little bit angry.
Yeah.
It's going to go into some sort of protection mode most likely.
So if you have an inland lake,
I'm assuming, that's me assuming. I have no evidence or proof of that, but I don't want to test it.
If you have an inland lake like in Virginia in the spring, that would be like the perfect 70 degree water, 70 degree outside.
Yeah, I imagine it's going to be more efficient. Yeah.
And then range anxiety, let's just talk about that. It's a word that's thrown around a lot when you talk about electric cars or electric tenders or electric boats. I would say that we don't have range anxiety, we have more range planning because I'm going to be honest, like our 6-gallon gas tank in our old dinghy would get us way further. I could do 20 or 30 miles on that. So a 6-gallon gas tank is way more energy dense than a 5 kilowatt hour lithium battery.
We think of it all as a fuel tank. How big is the fuel tank? So of course you're always limited by that, whatever that is. And for us, our 5 kilowatts of battery with this jet motor seems to be very sufficient for 90% of our usage. And we haven't had a day yet, which we haven't had that much cruising time, but we haven't had a day where we've tapped it out to where we were like, ooh, really cut it. That just hasn't happened. So we haven't really had to think about it.
No.
Now, that being said, I can think of at least 2 scenarios.
Yeah,
right?
2 scenarios on the old boat where we went really far.
Yes, so on our old, with our 6-gallon tank on our high-field tender, and
One was in the Bahamas. We had to cut through the island because versus sailing around would have taken like 2 days. So we cut through the island on this little channel, and it was a really, really long day.
So it was far. It was hours.
And then the other time was in Tonga when we wanted to go to the grocery store in our anchorage, and it was a really long distance to take the big boat. So we took a shortcut, and it was a long day as well.
It was still a long trip, but we could do that. Now, we could do that in the tender, but we'd have to do that at the slower speeds. And then at that point, I'm like, well, do you just sail the whole big boat around?
Yeah. And that's the reality. There's an island that's a 10-mile round trip that if we weren't stuck here in the marina, we'd just take the big boat out there and explore. But if I wanted to take the tender from here on a calm day, sure, I could. I would just have to plan. Like I wouldn't be able to go 18 knots flat out there and then 18 knots flat out back. I would have to do probably 70% of the way and a little bit of slow, and then 70% of the way back and a little bit of slow.
Exactly. So very doable. Still a very nice day. Great little exploration to go and be had. And that's really about as far as I want to go generally. Anyway, so for us, it feels kind of like the sweet spot. You know, any less and we probably would have range anxiety. Any more and we'd just be living living high. Yeah, so you're good.
And then the big takeaway, I think, no fuel. Never having to go to a fuel dock, never having to worry about getting fuel. I mean, the boat is the fuel dock.
Yeah.
The big boat.
Yeah, and I think the other big takeaway is the range is a lot better than I thought it was going to be. For our average cruising, we had already tested, so we kind of knew. In New Zealand, that was the whole point of the distance that we went. We were like, well, that's a pretty normal average day, right? And so for our average day use, it works. I did not think that I could go
30 miles.
25 miles. Yeah, that I would have never guessed that.
And you probably never will, because I don't think I could travel at 3 knots.
No. There are people who are willing to do it.
That's true, which is a great conversation. How do you use your dinghy?
Yeah.
Like, what do you expect in a day?
All we know is what we kind of
I feel normal. I feel like this is the normal cruising style, but it's just the two of us.
Yeah,
so.
exactly. We don't have not a very large case study. So yes, how many miles do you think you travel in a day? Have you ever really kept up with it? It doesn't matter. Maybe you're not maybe you live coastally, or you're on an inland waterway. You're on the ICW in Florida. Heck if I know. What kind of usage are you looking to get out of a tender, electric or not, in a day? And what's your what's your speed? What speed do you want to go? What speed are you willing to go? Are you the person that's like 4 knots is fine with me? I'm good with that all day, every day. Or like, no, need my 15 knots. Very curious.
Oh, well, that's a great conversation to have. We look forward to hearing your responses. And thank you very much for joining us.
Thanks for hanging out with us.
Thanks for watching me play with my dinghy.
Yeah, hope you enjoyed that.
Come again.
Bye.